I sometimes speak about called the four keys to success. And at any moment in time, I sometimes explain this through the analogy of a game of football, is to create a different story in our mind. The absolute number one, my go-to safety net, if all the other strategies don't work, I go back to the most important. Again, I'm tapping into, just positive energy here, because I believe so much of what we achieve is driven by the power of the mind.
Hi everybody, Paddy here. Today I'm joined by Gerry Duffy. Gerry is an international motivational speaker, author of 3 books. One book which we're going to talk about today, The Goal Getter. And Gerry's also ran 32 marathons in 32 days. So when it comes to endurance, Gerry will definitely be able to teach us a thing or two. So how you doing, Gerry? And thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, delighted to be here, Paddy, to chat to you again. We worked together in the past, so delighted to be here and to reach out to your network as well. And if we can help one person with one thing today, absolutely delighted to do it. And I know we've got some interesting things we're going to be talking about.
Great. We'll get straight in, Gerry. And so I suppose the first thing I want to talk about, Gerry, is goals. Because I think we'll all have had these big goals, and we've had to reset or rethink our goals now. What advice would you give our customers or teams just about revisiting their goals at the moment and maybe setting new goals?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that comes to mind, and I would imagine almost everybody listening to this, me included, I had a vision 7 weeks ago that things were the way the year I expected it to plan out. And now certainly at this moment in time, that vision looks quite different. So the first thing I think to do is, we still have 6-7 months in front of us. So maybe it's still realistic. Maybe we have to come at things from a slightly different angle, or maybe for many of us, we do have to reset those goals because maybe they're just not realistic as we speak, based on things that have happened and maybe the things that have yet to happen for us. So I think the first thing to do is to deal in reality and to maybe draw a line in the sand, and maybe just to refocus on maybe to if it was going to be €100 for want of a better a simple figure, what's the more realistic figure now, and to maybe just to taper that down, and if it's 60 or 75 or 80, maybe just a starting point there. And I think the most important thing here, I think, is to focus on our thinking, and it's a quality of our thinking that's going to get through this. So the very first thing, I would be suggesting to people is to just have that figure in mind, and maybe to start to just get very focused on what you're in control of, and to put your thoughts into things that are things that are inside of your control, for sure. I remember listening to somebody on the radio that had been dealt a significant challenge in life, and something had happened to a member of their family, and it was an accident caused by somebody that had done something irresponsible. And the interviewer said, what's your thoughts on the person that made this happen, that acted in that manner? And the person on the end of the interview said, I don't have time to be thinking about that person. I'm so focused here on what I'm in control of. I need to help the member of my family here. I haven't thought about that person, because I realize all of my energy, all of my focus needs to be on what's in my control and what I need to be in control of. And I think there's a great lesson there for us, Paddy, in terms of we can't control what we can't control. We can't control the government. We can't, in some ways we can control the virus, or at least how we manage ourselves through the virus. But in many ways we can't control policies. We can't control our competitors. And we can't control so many things that we can't control. The challenge is, though, sometimes we spend our thinking there. And what I heard on the radio in that thing was, in that scenario, was to just think about what I am in control of, to lock that energy, that mindset, that thinking, that focus back to what I am in control of. And that's how we might guarantee that €60 or €70 or €80, and really bring it, and maybe even overachieve, get closer back to the 100, rather than investing physical energy and mental energy in things outside of our control. So there are 2 big things to come to mind.
Okay, so refocus really important. Kind of that laser focus on what we can control.
Yeah, like, there's a thing that I sometimes speak about called the four keys to success. And at any moment in time, I sometimes explain this through the analogy of a game of football. So I'm playing in the county final and I'm the cornerback. And in the first, I waited all my life to play in this. And it's our first time ever for our team to be in the county final. And I'm the cornerback. A lot is respect, on my responsibility because I made the team. There's guys chomping at the bit to get in, and I'm picked. In the first 5 minutes, the corner forward turns me over twice. First time he scores a point when I really could have done better. Second time he scores a goal. Now we're 1-1 down, and it's only 5 minutes gone. That's a story going on in my head. Now, the easy place maybe to stay in, this is not our day, we waited, but listen, we weren't good enough. This guy's a much better player than me. But the four keys to success share, well, if we want things to be better, the very first thing we need to start thinking about is to create a different story in our mind. And that might be, well, that's the way the first 5 minutes was, but that's not the way it's going to be. So similarly, with this challenge, we might look at it and say, well, this is things that might happen as a result of this virus and how it's affecting my business. But I'm not going to settle for that. I'm going to change the story. This is how the future is going to be. So the first stage of the four keys is to endeavor to change the story that's going on in any moment in time, right? This has happened. The reality is the reality, but it's what I'm going to do about this that matters. Now I'm moving into the second stage, which is my attitude. So four keys to success: story. And if we want things to be different or better than we might think they are at the moment, we need to, the first place we have to go after that story is to, right, well, our attitude, what's my attitude around this going to be? Because our attitude, I've heard it said, a quote is, determines our altitude. From there, we move to the third stage, is we've got to take new or enhanced actions. So 6-7 weeks ago, when more than most people listen to this, my business immediately impacted. I said, okay, well, what's my attitude around this going to be? And then I spent a little bit of time there. I focused on, okay, what are the new actions I need to take, or what are the enhanced actions I need to take? And so I started to focus on those things and started to create different ways that I could run my business from home, reach out to customers, come up with new ways of delivering packaged content to my customers. So now I'm taking new enhanced actions. And if I do that, and if we adopt these principles, it may well lead to the fourth stage, which is better results. So 4 keys to success: story, change the story. Next stage is what our attitude around is going to be, because it's an extra test. Am I going to let this guy run rings around me in this game, or am I going to do something about it? I'm changing the story. Look, now my physiology is changing. Now from here, I'm ready to take new or enhanced actions, which might lead to better results.
I love the idea, Gerry, of enhanced actions. So that you're really taking up another notch. So when we have the goals and we've got this mindset, okay, and then, so I'm sure when you were doing your 32 marathons in 32 days, that there was times that you were just, I'm tired. What happens when motivation dips? How do we deal with a dip in motivation? And even for our teams, keeping our teams, I suppose, from a leader point of view and then from a team point of view.
Sure. So there's so many thoughts, so many ideas, that are running around in my head right now. But in terms of, the number one for me, the absolute number one, my go-to safety net, if all the other strategies don't work, I go back to the most important, and I go back to gratitude, and combining that with perspective. And yes, so many businesses are challenged. I can assure you, my business, no more than everybody listening to this, has been challenged. But I go to, and something that somebody said to me in the very first week when we were asked to just behave in a different way, and I'm sure that was kind of mid-March for many of us. And I remember somebody very close to me saying, listen, the only thing that matters here is health. It's the number one. If we don't have our health, we won't have businesses to go back to. So that's controlling what we can. And that's why we're being asked to just control our own health and our movements in that regard. So for me, it goes back to, no matter how challenged my business is at this moment in time, I know for a fact there's people would love to have the challenges that I have. I know for a fact they're out there. I can think of 1 or 2 people straight away. So it's always a sense of perspective on the challenge that we have. So I, maybe for a few minutes, put myself into perspective. I know people that would love to be at the level of challenge I'm at, because they're at an even deeper level. So this is around gratitude and perspective. And also I go back to, and I remember doing some of the sporting things that I've been lucky enough to do. I have a mindset now, Paddy, that I get to do these things, that I get to run, or I get to do those kind of events that you mentioned. And I realized, that I also get to pick myself up from this again. I pick myself up a business. Thankfully, I still have a business to pick up. Again, I'm tapping into, just positive energy here, because I believe so much of what we achieve is driven by the power of the mind. I believe success, personally speaking, I believe it's 80% psychological. So how up for this am I? And a simple example, I used to be terrified of public speaking, and I overcame that fear. That was the biggest thing I've ever achieved in my life, because it was a pathological fear. But I go back to perspective, I go back to gratitude, I go back to listening to this. People would love to be in a position to be going back to business. So maybe respect that and look at that as, do I have to go back to run my business, or do I get to go back to run my business? Great starting point, in my opinion.
So even when you say that I get to do just that simple shift in mindset, because you will hear a lot of, I have to do this, but that's simple shift of changing from I have to do to I have to do to I get to do. A very simple technique. Gerry, getting us into that frame.
I think so. And imagine if somebody said, no, I'm sorry, you can't go back into your business. You might say, well, wait a minute, I am going back. Well, you can't go back. I'm not allowing you to go back. Yes, I'm going back to my business. Look how easy it is to just deflect that. So, and again, it just taps into have to or get to. I remember 11 years ago, for about 4 or 5 months, Paddy, I couldn't run. I had a knee injury and I couldn't run. And I really, really wanted to run. And I couldn't run. And I began to become a little bit just consumed with, am I ever going to be able to run again? And I said to myself, well, maybe life is teaching you something here. And I remember capturing this in writing along the lines of, gosh, now you want to run and you can't run. If you're ever lucky enough to run again, don't ever have a mindset where you say you have to run. Because, Gerry, you never have to run. You get to run. Now you really want to run and you can't. When you go back to it, you get to do it. And I realized that just when I altered that one word in my head, everything changed. And I realized, Paddy, I could bring that into any area of my life. Have to run, get to run. Have to get up early in the morning, or get to get up early in the morning. Have to solve problems in my business, or get to solve problems. Have to work hard, have to pick myself up for this, or get to pick myself up for this. One word just completely transformed everything for me.
Wow, yeah, and very, 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 very simple, very, very effective. Yeah, very. And having a sense of purpose, Gerry, so how important is that in our business now, and how important is that to be sharing our sense of purpose with our teams?
Yeah, I think one of the big things, I certainly been on quite a few, webinars and Zooms and that kind of stuff over the last 5 or 6 weeks. And one thing I get asked a lot is, how do we stay motivated during these times? And what I found is certainly the old me might have just drifted into maybe less than good habits if I wasn't disciplined. And maybe because I get to speak about these things, I really find myself living these things. So what I've tried to do, over the last 6-7 weeks is keep as normal day as I possibly can. So I still get up at the exact same time. I still exercise first thing, which is what I always did. It might be very easy for us to maybe stay in bed 15 minutes later. 15 minutes later becomes 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 6 weeks later, it's an hour. Instead of getting up at 6, I'm getting up at 7. Instead of 7, it's 8. Now we're maybe losing that little bit of discipline, which lessens the purpose we have. And I think we need purpose. And for purpose, we need goals. And maybe we might lessen the goals at this time, but I believe, certainly for me, I need to have a plan for my week. I need to have discipline in my week. And for that, I need to have goals in my week. And I need to have a vision for when I'm going to do them. That lifts me. That gives me purpose. Happiness comes from that effort, I think, because life rewards effort. So I think it's about having discipline and structure and goals in our week. And that's going to be different things for different people. But in so much as is possible, maybe try and maintain a normal routine. And I think we know we should do these things, but are we doing these things? And maybe invite people, maybe we should, well, how am I doing that based on what I should be doing? And maybe score myself from 1 to 10. Like I've been super focused, I'm still doing everything. It might be an 8 or a 9 or a 10. I've completely lost, it might be a 1 or a 2. Whatever your score is, maybe say it's 4. Okay, well, what would I do in the next week to go from 4 to 5? maybe not try and jump right back up there. Just go from 4 to 5 the next week, and then maybe the week after, set a goal that gets you from 5 to 6. And I think very quickly we'll reignite that motivation in ourselves and have much more purpose in our weeks.
Great, Gerry. With your own business, so you work a lot with companies. I know you were one of our customers recently in the last couple of months, and so your job has been going around to companies, delivering leadership training, mindset training, and then also doing your speaker school and doing your talks. So your environment has changed at the moment. So how have you adapted? What have you put in place to I suppose change to the new world that we're starting to live in? How's your job changed, I suppose, on a daily basis? Yeah.
Sure, yeah. So when I got the news, like most people, we're kind of talking 8, 9, 10 March, I would imagine. That's when we really all of a sudden became even more aware, actually, this thing is not going away, and it's now arrived at our door. And I'm sure many people listening and watching this would have been in that same boat. And I'm sure many of us had busy diaries planned for March. And it was almost like a trapdoor opened, and anything that I'd booked in for the next 4 or 5 weeks was cancelled, literally email after phone call after communication, gone. So that took 3 or 4 days to kind of even, there was an awful lot going on. I was, just reacting to a lot of that. So a lot of those days were still busy. But then over the next week, I had to really sit down and say, okay, well, we go back to the 4 keys to success. This is an extra test to find out, and I would imagine people running their businesses here or leading businesses, we know it's not easy. We knew that when we got the job promotion, or we knew that when we set up the business. We didn't go for the job promotion to be the leader or the manager of that department, or to set up our own business knowing it was going to be easy. We did it knowing it was going to be hard. Some days, some weeks, some months, some years are going to be even harder than others. But what I've discovered is that's also an opportunity to discover talents you mightn't realize that you even had. My business in 08, 09 had a completely different business. I went through a really tough time. But I'm so glad now, because I discovered skills in that time that I didn't realize I had. And now I'm very grateful for that. What I specifically did in mid-March, Paddy, was I wrote down, I said, well, you've got to do what you've got to do. You can't be going out delivering live workshops or whatever it is, or doing leadership programs or whatever it is we were doing. But maybe I began to reach out to clients to look at my content. I'm fortunate that we can still deliver in the virtual world. I've been doing some of that for 1 or 2 clients. And I thankfully got that experience over the last 2 years of using things like Zoom. And I had one really good client that thankfully has continued to engage me in that world. But I started to look, well, how can I bring that to other clients? So I created a series of modules, kind of 60 to 90-minute modules around things that clients might be interested in to help them. For example, how do I manage my time in a crisis? How do I manage my mindset in a crisis? How do I manage my behavior in a crisis? How do I reach out to my network in a crisis? And I've developed modules that thankfully I went online and created a brochure on it in a couple of hours. I sent it out to some clients. And they said they seemed to like what they saw, and I thankfully got some engagement straight away from that. So it goes back, Paddy, to that 4 keys to success. And I'm not saying it's all rose in the garden. I'm not saying I wouldn't like more. I can assure you I'm still actively looking and thinking that for sure. But every step gets you closer. And thankfully, because of that, I'm now reaching, not just supporting my own business, but thankfully getting great feedback, supporting other businesses. I had a workforce, 175 people on a webinar yesterday, all around time management, and you could see the energy in it. This was literally everybody that worked in this company was invited onto a webinar, and we did a 60-minute time management, and very simple things, but the feedback we got was simple. Doesn't mean it's not truly powerful. So thankfully adapting, as I'm sure so many of the people watching and listening to this have had to adapt. So we take our content and our value to the marketplace. How can I support my clients? Actually, something else that's come to mind, Paddy, the first week of it, I reached out to clients and I started to connect with clients and say, listen, I would imagine this is a difficult time for you, just to say, I'm just thinking of you, and if there's anything I can do just to support you, please reach out. Just to be there, genuine for people, just to recognize the difficulty. And you wouldn't believe the number of customers that come back and said, listen, thanks a million for that, because we're all, I would imagine, going through tough times. So maybe just to even check in on your customers, see how they are, just be there for them, maybe an ear to that they can chat into, because that could be just a great support to people. And also maybe recognizing that this is an opportunity to be a real leader here in this, you know, because it's easy to do things when we're in the mood. But commitment, if we're committed to great leadership, if we're committed to being great owners of our business and drivers of our business, it's easy to do those things when we're in the mood. But here's a definition of commitment. Commitment is doing it when you're not in the mood. That's when you find out how truly gifted you are at commitment to whatever it is you feel that you're committed to.
Great. Yeah, great, Gerry. I've one more question just before we finish up. And so that question is, what in your eyes, what have we got to feel good about right now?
Okay. I remember years ago seeing this somewhere, and I shared it with several people. So what I do is I get people, I saw this somewhere, I thought it was so powerful. So on a flip chart, Paddy, I might write down the 9 times tables. So people watching this can bring that to life in their mind. So 9 times 1, 9 times 2, 9 times 3, all the way down as far as 9 times 7. And then I write an equal signs all the way down. And then I start filling in the answers from the bottom all the way back to the top. So 9 times 7 equals 63, 54, 45, 36, 27, 18. And then the last one, I write down the number 7. And of course I got it wrong, but they don't know I deliberately got it wrong. And there'll always be a murmur in the audience, and I'll see some people shuffling, and 2 or 3 people will probably start to call me out, and they'll point out the one I got wrong. Now, that's what I wanted them to do. Now, I didn't influence that. I just wrote it on a flip chart. But the moral of that story is this: there are so many things right in that flip chart. But not human nature, but human conditioning is to straight away potentially look at the one that's wrong. Now, yes, the 9 times 1 is 7 is something that's not working for sure. I need to fix this. And for us, maybe that's the challenge that our businesses have been thrown with this virus. But look at all the things that are right. So as an example, 9 times 3 is 27. Here's an example of that. I had one online client that didn't cancel anything. So I focused on that as an example. How tough would it be, Gerry, if 9 times 3 was 24? You know, if that one was wrong. So I start to recognize all the things that are still right in my business. And if we're willing to embrace that exercise, I get people to start to write it. Well, what are all the things in your business that are still right? You know, and you'd be amazed if we're willing to really commit to this exercise, how all of a sudden we can start to see all the good. And yes, the 9 times 1 is 7 is bad. It's not of our choosing. It's not what we want. But how difficult it would be if we didn't have all these other things. So it might be a certain amount of revenue that we still have in our businesses. It might be contracts that we know are definitely going to come back. It might be clients that are still working with us. It might be still great people committed in our employees, great people that are committed to the cause. It might be people that are out there supporting us. It might be great conversation. It could be so many different things, Paddy. But it's to focus at times, particularly like this, as you say, what are the things that are good? We need to identify what they are and maybe just realize, well, how tough would it be if I didn't have those?
Great, Gerry. That's really good. I was talking to someone, I think it was last week or the week before, and the same thing come up. It's sometimes when we're in this crisis or something is bad, we tend to see more of what's bad, and it's taking that time to take a step back and go, okay, what are all the things that are working right now?
I remember a number of years ago being invited. I'll tell you a really quick story. I was invited into a company a number of years ago, and a very large workforce, and everybody had the same thing in common. Everybody was being made redundant. Everybody. And I was very sympathetic of that and very empathetic of that. But I shared with them how it was all going to happen over a year. Going to be different people phased out of this company over a year. And everybody was affected. And I shared with them, listen, I totally respect how challenging that is. And people were very concerned with their mortgages and putting food on the table and so many commitments that they had. And I shared them, I said, I said, I totally understand and respect that. I said, but I'm going to show you. And they were all maybe driving home every evening thinking about, this is the end of the world. And I've been in this company 10 years or 20 years. How am I going to get a new job and all those things that would be certainly very easy for sure. And certainly I might even think those things myself at times. But I wanted to show them how in the space of literally 30 seconds, you could actually become respectfully dismissive of that challenge. So I shared them. I said, I want you to imagine you're going home this evening and you're walking out the door and you're thinking, I'm going to be out of here. How am I going to get a job? How am I going to pay my mortgage? And you're walking by reception and the receptionist stops you and tells you that there's a phone call for you. So you take this phone call in a quiet room at the back. And I shared with these people who were in front of me at this talk a number of years ago, all of whom were being made redundant. I said, imagine that's you that picks up the phone. And you hear this voice that you recognize, a member of your family, and this is what you hear. Get to the hospital quick. There's been an accident. Get here now. I shared him. I said, if, God forbid, you got that phone call, I said, is it fair to say that this challenge of losing your job was, of course it's a challenge, but in the pecking order, you would suddenly become, oh, listen, I'll sort that out. I'll get that sorted, because now something even more important is in jeopardy. And I'm incredibly respectful, and more than my business, your business, I'm sure, Paddy, so many businesses are impacted by this. But maybe it goes back to that perspective, you know, just going back to that gratitude of all the things that we do have, particularly at times when it might be just easier for us, and maybe I understand, you know, just where we might be focusing on what we don't have, just to look at all the things that we do have. And we can suddenly maybe just begin to change that story and realize, you know, well, my attitude around this and the new enhanced actions I'm going to take, they will get me through this. So that's what I'm going to focus on, because I have all these things that are still right and still going for me in my life and in my business.
Great. Again, lovely story there, Gerry. Thanks for sharing that with us. Definitely, the enhanced action is something that I'm taking away from our conversation. Just before we finish up, Gerry, if people want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
Sure. So I'll give my email if people so the kind of things I help people with is obviously goal setting, mindset, and leadership, do leadership programs, as you mentioned, and also public speaking programs. So very often business owners are giving talks, and very often business owners, I used to be terrified, you know, people have challenges around that. So I help people with that. My email, if people want any help in any way, is gerry@gerryduffyacademy.com. Very easy to find.
Great. Listen, Gerry, thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate it. I'm sure that it'll help our customers' teams. So thank you very much, and stay well and stay safe.
Thank you, Paddy, and thanks to everybody.